Hello, everybody. This is Mr. Laubach. Thank you for joining me. In this video, I'm going to go over the abolition movement of the 1800s. Now, I do cover the abolition movement in some of my other videos, but this one is going to be exclusively about the movement. So when we talk about the abolition movement, we are talking about the abolition or the abolishment of slavery. The roots of the abolition movement trace back to the late 18th century or the 1700s, where the earliest abolitionists emerged in various parts of the world. In the United States, figures like Benjamin Lay, a Quaker and one of the earliest recorded abolitionists, fervently spoke out against the institution of slavery in the early parts of the 1700s. Lay's radical activism included public protests and writings condemning slavery as a moral outrage. His bold actions, which included staging dramatic demonstrations, like once interrupting a Quaker meeting by exposing a book depicting the horrors of slavery, challenging the societal acceptance of slavery. His uncompromising stance against the practice of owning human beings as property laid a foundational groundwork for future abolitionist movement and set a precedent for the moral imperative of challenging the institution of slavery. Now let's jump ahead to the 1800s or the 19th century. The 19th century was a time of change, growth, and conflict in the United States. The nation was deeply divided over the issue of slavery. The abolition movement emerged as a powerful force challenging the institution of slavery and advocating for its immediate end. Now, there were many abolitionists. Abolitionists came from many religions, races, and other backgrounds, both men and women. But let's talk about some of the more notable and famous ones like Frederick Douglass, Harriet Tubman, and William Lloyd Garrison. They fearlessly fought against the inhumane practice of enslaving fellow human beings. William Lloyd Garrison, through his newspaper, The Liberator, called for the immediate and complete emancipation of all slaves. His bold words ignited a spark that would spread across the nation, inspiring others to join the cause. The abolition movement wasn't just about speeches and writings. It was also about action. The Underground Railroad, a network of secret routes and safe houses, aided enslaved individuals in their escape to free states and Canada. Harriet Tubman, an iconic figure in the movement, became known as the Moses of her people for her courage in leading many to freedom along the dangerous Underground Railroad. Women played a pivotal and often underestimated role in the abolition movement. Despite societal norms that limited their public involvement, many women were passionate advocates for the abolition of slavery. Figures like Sojourner Truth, Lucretia Mott, and Angelina Grimke fearlessly spoke out against the injustice of slavery, advocating not only for the freedom of enslaved individuals, but also for women's rights. They faced dual oppression, fighting not just against slavery, but also against the limitations placed on their rights and freedoms as women. Many women formed and joined abolition societies, wrote influential literature, and held public lectures despite facing backlash for their activism. Their participation in the abolition movement was a catalyst for the later women's suffrage movement, as again they recognized the parallels between oppression of enslaved individuals and the limitations placed on women's rights. Their efforts laid a foundation for future activism, demonstrating the power of unity and determination in striving for social change. Frederick Douglass was a towering figure in the abolition movement in the 19th century. Born into slavery, he escaped to become a powerful orator and writer, sharing his firsthand experience and the brutality of slavery. Douglass tirelessly advocated for the abolition of slavery, using his eloquent and compelling narrative to galvanize support for the cause. His autobiography, Narrative of the Life of Frederick Douglass, an American Slave, became a seminal work, shedding light on the inhumanity of slavery, which, believe it or not, at the time, many Americans weren't aware of many of the horrible conditions that enslaved people faced. Douglass's dedication to justice and equality extended beyond the abolition cause, as he also fought for women's suffrage and the civil rights of African Americans. Douglass was a key figure in the Seneca Falls Convention in 1848 as well. Now, there were two more people that were very important to the abolition movement. John Brown and Harriet Beecher Stowe. First, let's talk about John Brown. John Brown was a white man and was an ardent abolitionist known for his fervent opposition to slavery. His enthusiasm for the abolitionist cause led him to take radical actions. Brown believed that armed insurrections were necessary to overthrow the institution of slavery. He gained attention after leading a raid on the federal arsenal at Harper's Ferry, Virginia in 1859, aiming to start a slave rebellion. Although the raid failed and Brown was captured, his actions sparked intense debates and heightened tension over the issue of slavery in the United States. Brown was also involved in Bleeding Kansas, which was a mini civil war that took place in the Kansas Territory after the Compromise of 1850. See one of my other videos to learn more about Bleeding Kansas and the Compromise of 1850. To many abolitionists, Brown became a symbol of resistance against the oppressive system of slavery and was a martyr for the cause, even though his methods were highly controversial and violent. Slavery supporters saw him simply as a terrorist. Brown's legacy as an abolitionist and his willingness to sacrifice himself for the pursuit of freedom left a lasting impact on the fight against slavery. Now, Harriet Beecher Stowe. Stowe's novel, Uncle Tom's Cabin, was published in 1852. It follows the story of several characters primarily focusing on Uncle Tom, a black man enslaved on a southern plantation. The novel portrays the harsh realities of slavery, depicting the cruelties inflicted upon enslaved individuals and emotional struggles they endured. Through Tom's experience, the author highlights the moral and ethical implications of slavery, stirring widespread empathy and outrage among readers and support for the abolition movement. Uncle Tom's Cabin became a powerful anti-slavery tool as its emotional impact helped galvanize the abolition movement in the northern states. It provoked discussions about the moral injustices of slavery, contributing significantly to the tensions that ultimately led to the American Civil War. But the abolitionist journey wasn't without challenges. They faced fierce opposition from defenders of slavery who believed it was essential for the Southern economy and a way of life. Acknowledging the resistance and opposition faced by the abolition movement is crucial to understand the complexities of this period in history. While the abolition movement gained significant momentum and support, there were formidable adversaries who staunchly defended the institution of slavery. Pro-slaveries, such as Senator John C. Calhoun of South Carolina, argued vehemently for the preservation of slavery as a positive good for society, asserting that it was a fundamental part of the Southern economy and way of life. Now, these beliefs were deeply entrenched in notions of racial superiority and economic necessity, leading to fierce resistance against the efforts of abolitionists. Another argument was the slavery is a necessary evil argument, which of course was pro-slavery. This argument stated that slavery was deemed necessary for economic prosperity, social stability, and cultural advancement. Advocates of this argument have historically justified the enslavement of individuals by claiming that it is crucial for the functioning of industry, agriculture, or overall development of society. These pro-slavery advocates argued that without the labor force provided by slavery, certain economies would have struggled or collapsed. However, this perspective is highly controversial and widely condemned as it disregards the fundamental violation of human rights, the cruelty and the inhumane treatment that slavery entailed, of course. Debates between abolitionists and pro-slavery advocates were intense, highlighting the deep division and ideological differences that plagued the nation during this turbulent time of the mid-1800s. This clash of ideologies intensified, leading the nation on a path towards division and ultimately the Civil War. As tensions escalated, the country found itself on the brink of conflict over the issue of slavery. The election of Abraham Lincoln in 1860, a staunch opponent of the expansion of slavery, further polarized the nation. Now, in 1860, Abraham Lincoln did not verbally say that he wanted to abolish slavery. He just wanted to prevent the expansion of it. although he personally found the institution of slavery disgusting. The Southern states seceded from the Union after Lincoln's election, and this quickly led to the Civil War. During the war, the abolition movement gained momentum. President Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation during the war in 1863 declared that all enslaved people in Confederate-held territory were to be set free. This monumental step shifted the focus of the war and redefined its purpose, making the abolition of slavery the central goal. Now, keep in mind that the Emancipation Proclamation did not free enslaved people in the, quote, border states that were on the side of the Union where slavery was still legal. And obviously, the territory was under Confederate control, so it was difficult to enforce the Emancipation Proclamation. Following the Civil War, the 13th Amendment to the Constitution was ratified, officially abolishing slavery throughout the United States. The abolition movement had achieved its primary objective, marking a significant victory for human rights and equality. Yet the struggle for equality still persists today. The legacy of slavery continues to shape American society, leading to ongoing battles for civil rights and racial justice that has not been fully realized to this day. So without a doubt, slavery has certainly impacted American history, not only back then, but even today. So I hope this video helps you better understand the complexities of the abolition movement, its challenges, and its victories. Thanks for watching, and have a great rest of the day.